The church was silent, holding the kind of heavy silence that only comes when grief has settled over an entire room. Rows of black suits and dresses filled the pews, faces bowed, eyes red. At the very front, resting under the dim glow of the candles, was my father's coffin. The polished wood surface gleamed, but it only reflected the finality none of us wanted to face. He was gone, or so we believed. I sat close to my mother, her hand clutching mine with a grip that trembled. Every now and then she would shift, her body leaning as though the weight of sorrow was too much to carry upright. The murmur of the pastor's voice echoed faintly through the high ceiling. People dabbed at their eyes, stared into their laps. I felt numb, almost outside of my own body. And then, in the middle of all that stillness, my pocket vibrated. At first I ignored it. Who checks their phone during a funeral? Surely it was just a message from a far relative too far away to attend. Maybe someone sending sympathy late. But then it buzzed again, insistent, demanding attention. Something in me, the faintest, strangest tug of instinct, drove me to pull the glowing screen into view. There it was, a single message. One line, no introduction, no apology, no explanation. Just words that froze my stomach and made my chest clench so tightly it hurt. I'm not dead. I am still alive. For a moment, I thought my eyes deceived me. The letters seemed to blur. I blinked hard, staring back. The words didn't change. I'm not dead. I'm still alive. My pulse hammered against my ribs. The message wasn't from an unknown number. It wasn't from a stranger. It was from my father's number, the same one that had called me for years. The same one that I had dialed the night before the hospital, called with news of his passing. Shock pinned me in my seat. The air seemed to fold in around me. The pastor's voice faded, the sound of sniffles and shuffling feet disappeared. For a moment, all I saw was that screen, glowing like fire in my hands. I gasped loudly without meaning to. A few people beside me turned their heads, confused. My mother looked at me instantly, alarm flashing in her eyes. "What is it?" she whispered hoarsely, tightening her grip. I couldn't answer. Instead, I turned the phone screen toward her. She leaned closer, her gaze falling on the message. I will never forget the way her face drained of color, the way her lips parted soundlessly, as though grief had just been cut with fear. The coffin stayed at the front, the pastor kept speaking, people kept weeping. But everything inside me had shifted, because if that message was real, then nothing about this funeral was what we thought it was. My mother's hand began to tremble as she held my phone, her eyes darting across the words again and again, just as I had. Her lips moved almost silently, as if repeating the sentence to herself. I'm not dead. I am still alive. Around us, the service continued. No one else knew. People were still grieving, still wiping tears, still whispering prayers. Yet here we sat, staring at a glowing screen that had shattered our understanding of reality. Her grip tightened around my wrist. "This isn't possible," she whispered urgently, her voice trembling between fear and faint hope. I watched her chest rise sharply as though she'd forgotten to breathe. She wanted to believe. It maybe even needed to, but her rational mind struggled against it. I leaned closer, my own voice barely audible. "It's his number. It's really his." She shook her head violently, shaking as if trying to push the thought away. No, it's someone cruel playing games. That's not him." But I knew what she feared. If someone had access to his phone, then it meant disturbing possibilities. Where was it? Who had it? Why now, during the very moment we laid him to rest? My mind spun with questions. What if the hospital had made a mistake? What if the man in that coffin wasn't him? The coffin had remained closed during the service. At his request prior to his passing, none of us had seen him inside. It was meant to preserve dignity, but suddenly that choice felt twisted with doubt. I wanted to dismiss it entirely, to call it a prank, but my hands betrayed me, trembling uncontrollably, my breath shallow. The timing was too sharp, too haunting. Why here? Why now? My mother gripped the phone tighter, her eyes never leaving the screen. Then, despite her attempts to maintain composure, fresh tears slipped down her cheeks. Only this time they didn't fall solely from grief. They carried something else, fear. "We can't let anyone see this," she whispered suddenly, clutching my arm. Her eyes were wide, frantic, like a cornered animal. Don't you understand? If it really is him, if somehow... She stopped herself, pressing her lips tight as though giving breath to the thought might bring disaster. But I knew what she couldn't say out loud. She, too, was questioning everything. She, too, wondered if her husband wasn't where we thought he was. The pastor's voice echoed, "We gather here to say goodbye." The words stung louder than before, contradicted by the message still glowing harshly on my phone. Goodbye? He had just written the opposite. And though I tried to sit still, one thought screamed in my mind like thunder too loud to silence. What if the dead man we mourned wasn't dead at all? I couldn't stop staring at the coffin at the front of the church. Its polished surface reflected the glow of the candles, but now it seemed sinister, like a locked chest holding a question no one dared to ask. For so long, I had thought of it as my father's resting place. After that message, I couldn't decide if it was a prison, a decoy, or worse, something empty. My phone buzzed again. I flinched, my heart leaping into my throat. I lowered my head quickly, shielding the screen from the curious eyes of those around me. Another message, this one longer. "You don't understand. I never died. Please believe me." My pulse roared in my ears. My mother leaned in instantly, and when her eyes caught the words, she gasped so loudly the woman behind us reached forward to whisper, "Are you all right?" My mother forced a nod, but her trembling shoulders betrayed her. We tried to think rationally. Perhaps someone had cloned his number. Perhaps his phone was stolen before he passed. But who would do this now at the exact hour of his funeral? And why write those words? Why not gloat? Why not scam? Why not harass? Instead, it was simple, desperate, even familiar. I could almost hear his voice speaking those words, in the same tone he used when trying to assure people in moments of chaos. It was him. My gut screamed it was him. A third buzz. "Open the coffin, please." I nearly dropped the phone. My throat dried out instantly as I felt my entire body stiffen. My mother shook her head furiously, mouthing, "No!" Her grip on my arm was iron. But I couldn't stop the thought, spinning wildly in my brain. What if? What if he was inside? What if he wasn't dead at all? The pastor's words blurred. The sobbing around me faded. I couldn't hear anything except the hammer of my own heartbeat. I stared at that coffin until my vision swam. My chest felt like it might split open. Another vibration came, but this one different. A phone call. My father's name appeared on the screen, glowing against the black background. His name, his number, right there in my hands while his so-called body lay only feet away. I fumbled, nearly dropping the device as I stared at the impossible sight. My mother let out a whimper so soft it was almost swallowed by the air. She shut her eyes tight, shaking her head, clutching at her necklace as though preparing for whatever came next. The phone was buzzing against my palm, my father's name blinking insistently, and that one terrible, impossible question thundered through my mind. Do I answer it? The phone shook against my hand, the screen glowing with his name. My late father's name? Every fiber of logic screamed it couldn't be real, but my heart refused to let go of hope. My thumb hovered over the green icon, my breath caught in my throat. Around me, the funeral pressed on like some strange play, unaware that the script had already been ripped apart. And then, I answered. "Hello?" The word came out cracked, barely a whisper. My mother's hand clutched my arm so tightly. I thought she might leave marks in my skin. Static first, a dreadful crackle that made my stomach twist. Then, just faintly, a voice I knew better than anyone's. "Please, listen to me. I'm not dead. Don't let them bury me." The blood drained from my face. His voice was weak, raspy, desperate, but it was undeniably his. My father's. My mother gasped, covering her mouth, her entire body trembling. She was hearing it too. I wanted to shout, to stop the ceremony, to run to the coffin and tear it open. But my body froze. My head spun with the impossibility. If this was true, how? How could a man declared dead speak on the other side of a phone? Had there been a mistake in the hospital? Had something been hidden from us? Questions struck one after the other. But none mattered compared to the one truth screaming inside me. He was alive. His voice grew more strained on the other end. "Don't trust them. I'm still here. Find me." The call cut. The line went dead. I sat frozen, staring at the phone, sweat beading on the back of my neck. My heart thudded so loudly I swore the pews around me could hear. My mother pulled me close. tears streaming down her face, not the tears of mourning anymore, but something else. Fear? Hope? Maybe both. At the front, the pastor gently tapped the coffin, signaling the pallbearers to prepare. My chest seized in panic. The coffin. That sealed box. Those words replayed in my head like thunder. "Open the coffin, please." I half stood, stumbling forward before a hand yanked me back. My mother's. "Not now," she hissed, eyes wide with terror. We don't know." But we did know. Deep down, we both knew. As the pallbearers lowered their hands to the brass handles, lifting the casket onto their shoulders, my phone lit once more. One last message appearing on the screen. "I'm here. Don't bury me." And in that moment, everything I thought I knew about death, about life, about my father collapsed into a single, horrifying truth. The funeral wasn't the end. It was the beginning.